Good morning, PTI Nice Daily Show. Happy Friday morning. Hope your Friday is off to a good start so far. My name is Alan. I'll be your host today, COO of the Institute of Clinical Excellence and faculty member in our Fitness Athlete Division. Speaking here on the best dang day of the week, Fitness Athlete Friday. We're going to talk all about the functional movement screen today. Before we do, just a couple quick announcements. Don't forget to check out Gut Check Thursday. That dropped yesterday. 21, 15, 9, 15, 21 of air squats and sit-ups. And then after every round, 10 push-ups. So a total of 50 push-ups throughout that workout. If you're doing the open, if you have something active going on this weekend, consider that a recovery workout. Just move through it. Not for time. Move through the squats, the sit-ups, the push-ups. Just kind of get a full body pump going on, but don't worry about the intensity. If you're not doing the open, or if you've already done 20.3, then go ahead and hit that pretty hard and post a good time. This weekend, going down to Orlando, Florida. Be there alongside another ICE faculty member, Eric Jaconis. He's already presented. He's presented on Thursday. He had a pre-conference course on substance abuse and pain and physical therapy. I will be presenting tonight. I'm actually jumping on a plane not too long. I've got a patient and then a check-in with my nutrition coach, and then I'm screaming down to the airport to get on a plane to Orlando. I'll be talking about all things loading, as we tend to do here on Fitness Athlete Friday. So I'll be speaking later this evening down at the conference and then jumping back on a plane tomorrow morning to head on back from Orlando. So let's get into today's topic, the functional movement screen. So we'll talk a little bit about it, what it is in case you don't know what it is, how it's scored, how it's kind of utilized, and we'll talk about some of the research around it. We posted a little research infographic last week from an article that just came out from Brad Schoenfeld and colleagues looking at the FMS, and we got a whole bunch of different commentary and dialogue, which is really, really good. So I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into the FMS. So what is the FMS? It is a series of 7 movements. So it's an overhead squat, step over kind of a low to medium height hurdle. I wouldn't call it high. A lunge, behind the back reach, as we tend to do to quickly assess shoulder, external, internal rotation, range of motion, an active straight leg raise, a basically push-up hold, and then an ipsilateral plank type tuck where you are on one side of your body, left hand, left leg down, tucking your right arm to your right knee, and then vice versa. It's scored 0 to 3 per each movement. 0 is if you have pain, and then 1 to 3 based on different quality landmarks. You get a 3 if you meet all the points of performance for that movement. So a total of 21 possible. 21 is perfect. The FMS would say, and they do say, that if you get less than a 14 out of 21, you are at increased injury risk. You can certainly buy the equipment without going to the course, but if you want to go to the level 1 course and learn how to administer it and score it, that's $550, and then it's another $550 for the level 2 course to learn corrective exercises to fix whatever may have been wrong with each of those 7 movements. And so we see the clinical utility of this as a little cash-based marketing for most clinics, charging folks $50 to $100 to come on in and have an FMS done on them, maybe develop a home exercise program for them based on the results, or get them scheduled for formal physical therapy based on the results. Some clinics use it as part of their evaluation. The follow-on to the functional movement screen is the Selective Functional Movement Assessment, the SFMA, also from the same company, that digs a lot deeper into assessment. And certainly here in the Fitness Athlete Division, we use the SFMA a little bit in our assessment for movement, particularly the lumbar lock assessment to look at thoracic rotation. So clinics are using it. Clinics are charging for it. Cash, not covered by insurance, obviously. And then telling people different plans to get an HEP, to get scheduled for PT, maybe because they performed poorly on it. We'll come back around to that point in a little bit, but first I want to dig into the research behind the FMS. So let's look at 5 different articles. The first one back in 2011 by Parchman looked at the FMS and found that it's not an adequate field test. This study in particular, looking at collegiate golfers, found no relationship to any aspect of athletic performance or injury risk in this population. The control group just did back squatting and looked at the 1 rep max back squat as a performance marker and found that the 1 rep max back squat as compared to the functional movement screen was a much better indicator of performance in these collegiate golfers. Same year, O'Connor and colleagues, looking at a different population, looking at Marine Corps officer candidates. So those Marine officers going through entry-level training to become Marine officers, going through some grueling physical tasks, and then on to their specialized school. And what they found in this study is that the candidates that met that criterion listed by FMS, less than a 14 out of 21, had a 95% confidence level of predicting injuries. But they also found that 80% of those folks who got less than a 14 did not pass the Marine Corps physical fitness test, and that 95% of those who had greater than a 14 out of 21 on the FMS had a 280 out of 300 or better on the Marine Corps physical fitness test. So these are very, very, very in shape folks. Based on that data, these authors concluded that physical fitness overall was a better predictor of injury risk than the mobility assessment found through the FMS, which again and again in the literature, not talking specifically about the FMS, but just looking at physical fitness and physical robustness overall, we already know that to be true, that the stronger you are, the more fit you are, the less likely you are to be injured. That's true across all literature, regardless of if we're looking at FMS or not. Fast forwarding a few years to 2014, Beardsley and colleagues found that the FMS was not able to differentiate between athletes of different ability levels and competitive levels, and found that even the most elite athletes in this study performed very well in their sport despite a poor FMS score. So it's not able to tell you who is maybe a recreational or an amateur athlete or an elite athlete. Even the most elite in this study still got away with a poor FMS score overall, but did not have increased injury risk. Fast forward a couple more years to 2017, LaFontaine and colleagues. This study, very particular, very relevant to us here on Fitness Athlete Friday, looked at CrossFit athletes. So folks going to CrossFit a couple days a week, not elite athletes, not CrossFit Games athletes, but just regular old CrossFitters, folks who are just doing CrossFit to stay in shape. They wanted to look at the FMS and see if it could predict injury in CrossFit athletes across 10 weeks. They found no relationship between a low FMS score and increased injury during CrossFit exercise across those 10 weeks. And the researchers even admitted in their discussion that they came into the study with bias, that they were sure they would find a correlation between a low FMS score and a high injury rate in CrossFit, but they were not able to find that in the data, and the data showed otherwise. And then finally, the paper that we talked about on social media last week, we put out in Hump Day Hustling and made a little infographic about it from Brad Schoenfeld and colleagues. If you're not following Brad Schoenfeld, Schoenfeld, on Instagram, please do. Fantastic exercise physiologist and researcher, talks a lot about exercise and nutrition. He had a paper in this month's Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research that looked at the FMS, big review of a lot of different papers, and concluded that the evidence overall is conflicting. That looking at all the studies on the FMS, as we tend to find when we look at large groups of papers, that the methodology was poor and highly variable. So when we lump all these papers together, it doesn't shake out too well. Schoenfeld and colleagues discussed that you should not use the FMS as a screen for injury risk, and concluded that the FMS is best described as an assessment of human movement quality and not a risk assessment tool. So we should not be using this to tell people they're at an increased risk for injury. The data just does not support that. Yes, we can use it to look at somebody's overhead squat, their ability to step over hurdle, lunge, certainly their shoulder mobility with the behind the back reaching, their posterior chain mobility with the active straight leg raise, and then kind of an overall picture of their core integrity and core endurance with the push-up and the plank tuck. But overall, we can't put all that together and say that this person is at an increased risk of injury due to poor performance on the FMS. What we can mainly get from it is that with these unloaded movements, somebody may not have as high quality of movement as someone else. And so we had some questions on social media. Do we feel that poor movement puts people at a higher risk for injury? I will say, first of all, I don't feel very often about data. I don't go by feeling with this sort of thing. I go by what the data says and by observation. And the data does not support using this tool to screen people for injury. So that's not what we should be doing. We should not be charging $100 to do this test to tell somebody they're at a high risk for injury and that they need to get some sort of prehab program or HEP based on their FMS performance. The data simply, for almost a decade now, does not support that. So if we're doing that, we should probably stop. In the fitness athlete division, we often get asked, do we use the FMS to screen folks clinically or before we have them start CrossFit? And the answer is no. Soundly no from Mitch and myself and Zach. We don't use the FMS to pre-screen people and lump them into an injury risk category. I will say, me personally, I'm very biased against it. This whole system kind of facilitates this environment where people get scared into believing that they need to get in shape before they can try to get in shape, that they need to do all this prehab stuff before they can start a physical fitness program, and that they need to perfect these movements and reduce their injury risk based on what the FMS has told them before they can start to go to the gym and run or lift weights or do CrossFit or pick up road biking. And we really start to infect these folks with a lot of nocebo. We are telling people that they're more likely to be injured because of how they move and perform on this test, which we know from a lot of literature looking at persistent and chronic pain, that those folks are just less likely to move overall. If you tell somebody, hey, you're at a 79% increased risk for injury because of your performance on this test, they're probably leaving that visit thinking, well, I'm not going to do anything risky then. I'm not going to start an exercise program. I'm not going to start to lift heavy weights if my body is somehow broken and I can't perform these movements. I don't want to hurt myself, so I'll rather just not do anything at all, which is the exact opposite effect of what we need to be having with our patients and clients. We need to get folks moving more as much as we can. We know the chronic disease epidemic. Folks are simply not moving enough. We need to do whatever we can to introduce them to movement, make them successful with an exercise program, and get them doing something regularly versus scaring them away with a test like this. And so what this screen does is facilitate folks who spend time doing mobility and corrective exercises and long duration stretches instead of actually just getting strong and getting their heart rate up. Kelly Starrett, great physical therapist, excellent CrossFit coach. A lot of you know that name. I'm certain you've read his books, followed his social media content. Has this to say about the FMS, which is you should just work out. If you are programming exercise correctly at a correct dosage, if you are coaching folks correctly and keeping them moving well, then the workout that you program for them is the test itself. They can either do it or they can't, or they have to modify it, and you find out where their weaknesses are and stuff they have to work on without giving them any sort of pre-screening or giving them an 8-week prehab program. And he has this to say as well: don't use correlates for movements, just use the movements. If the exercise is functional, if it's large amplitude, if it's moving a lot of muscle groups and joints together, then you will quickly find out where somebody's faults are at, and you'll be able to help them correct those faults and work on those weaknesses without them needing to leave the gym and spend some time working on prehab. And that sort of stuff should only be done in somebody's spare time. It should not be the main focus of their physical fitness program. That should be stuff they do at home before bed, or maybe 15 minutes before class starts. It should not be the focus of their physical fitness program. So remember the basics from the CrossFit Level 1 seminar: mechanics, consistency, intensity. That's the basis of coaching. So we're really big on that next door at CrossFit Fenton, having the time in each CrossFit class to work with the athletes, to show them the movement if they're new to it, to help them refine the movement if they're a veteran and they know the movement, and overall just improve their performance without taking those movements away from them, without making them do a whole bunch of stair-step prehab stuff to be able to actually do that movement. We can find an infinite number of ways to get a similar stimulus for that person without taking that movement away from them, right? We're not going to take the squat away from somebody if they have no pain with a squat. We're going to find different ways to get their legs loaded, to get them loaded in a squat pattern, a bunch of different regressions and modifications that are available. So don't use correlates for movements, just use the movements themselves. If somebody can't show you high quality mechanics, if they do have a faulty overhead squat or limited shoulder mobility or limited posterior chain mobility or a weak core, then because they can't show sound mechanics consistently, we're going to ramp down their intensity. Again, that's the point of being the coach, whether you're coaching a CrossFit class or you're coaching one-on-one in the clinic with a patient. If somebody can't show you that tight flat back with a deadlift, you're not going to have them build heavy on that deadlift. You're going to elevate the deadlift from the floor. You're going to reduce the range of motion. You're going to reduce the load so that it is not at a level that can cause that person any harm, but they're still going to practice that movement without taking it away from them. So keep that in mind. Mechanics, consistency, intensity, first and foremost. So that's all I have on that. I would love to hear more discussion. We had some back and forth on that post over the weekend, which was great. So just recapping here, the functional movement screen, research does not simply support that it is useful as a screen. We should not be using it to tell people they're at increased injury risk. That doesn't shake out in the data across a whole bunch of different populations, recreational athletes, elite athletes, military members. The data does not support that we can use it as a injury risk tool. It's just kind of an overall assessment of human movement quality, as Schoenfeld and colleagues said, and that's pretty much it. I would argue we should not be charging folks a couple $100 to have it done and give them a prehab program before they can start exercising. We should just have those folks start exercising and then give them little accessory stuff here and there based on what we see as they're doing these functional movements. So happy to take more discussion, happy to talk about this some more, but wanted to talk about the research and talk about how we, don't use it clinically and why we don't. So hope that makes sense. Hope that helps you out there for those of you that had questions about it. All right, that's it. Hope you have a great weekend. If you'll be at AOPT, come down and see me tonight at 7. I don't know what room I'll be in. I'm sure it's on the schedule. Some stuff coming up. We have our telehealth course with Rob Vining starting October 30th. Don't miss that. We have only a few seats left. That's our very first inaugural cohort. If you're looking to get into telehealth, full-time, part-time, add it to your practice, that is the course for you. Rob has been doing telehealth for quite a long time, so he is the man to learn from. We also have persistent pain management starting next week on the 28th with Justin Dunaway. That'll be the last cohort of the year for that course. So check those out if you're looking to get in some online learning. Live courses running out very quickly for the year. November 2nd and 3rd, Jeff will be at home base in Fort Collins, Colorado for lumbar spine management. Dustin and Christina and our friend Alex will be out in Paramus, New Jersey that same weekend, November 2nd and 3rd for modern management of the older adult live. That is the last one of the year for that course as well. That one has 4 seats left. November 9th and 10th, Zach and Megan Daly will be out in Los Angeles with the Prehab guys for Fitness Athlete Live. That same weekend, November 9th and 10th, Jason will be in Georgia for Rehab of the Injured Runner. Again, last one of the year for that course. And then that same weekend, November 9th and 10th, I'll be up in Milwaukee with Jeff and our friend Rachel Selena teaching cervical spine management. That is the last cervical spine course of the year. Hopefully you're noticing a theme. The last fitness athlete course of the year is November 16th and 17th in Victor, New York at Limitless Physical Therapy Specialists. That's with Zach and myself. November 23rd and 24th, the weekend before Thanksgiving, Justin will be in Connecticut for Total Spine Thrust, last Total Spine course of the year. And then our very, very, very last course of the year, Lumbar Spine Management, if you're looking to take that course, will be in Florence, South Carolina, December 7th and 8th. And that's with our good friend Jordan Berry, taking that one out solo for the first time. That'll be a fun course down in South Carolina. Get away from the cold a little bit in December. So that's it. Coming to a rapid close here at the end of the year. About a month left of courses. Taking 2 or 3 weeks off around the holidays as we tend to do, and then ramping right back up in January. So hope you have a good weekend, have a good Friday. I will be back on next week to talk to you. Good luck if you're hitting 20.3. Don't forget to hit gut check, and don't forget to sign up for Hump Day Hustling, our weekly newsletter, free to your inbox every Wednesday morning. If you want to get more research like we talked about today, then sign up for Hump Day Hustling. Get it directly to your inbox. That's a wrap for me. Bye, everybody.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.